What if the birth of a nation did not begin with unity, but with fear? What if the foundations of modern Spain were laid not only with crowns and vows, but with exile, fire, and silence? In the year 1492, Europe crossed an invisible threshold. The Middle Ages did not end with a trumpet blast, they ended with a queen. Her name was Isabella of Castile. To some, she was a saintly ruler, chosen by God. To others, she was the architect of intolerance, a woman whose vision of unity reshaped a continent and scarred it forever. Tonight, we return to a fractured land, to follow the rise of a queen who believed order was holier than mercy and unity more sacred than diversity. This is the story of how Spain was forged and what it cost to make it whole. Before Spain existed, there was only divide. The Iberian Peninsula was a mosaic of rival kingdoms, cultures, and faiths. Castile, Aragon, Navarre, Granada, each with its own ambitions, borders, and grudges. Christians, Muslims, and Jews lived side by side, not in harmony, but in a tense, fragile coexistence held together by necessity. This was a land shaped by centuries of conflict, known as the Reconquista, a slow, grinding struggle between Christian kingdoms and Muslim rule, fought not only on battlefields, but in laws, marriages, and memories. Power shifted constantly. Loyalties fractured, and the idea of a single Spain was still unthinkable. It was into this unstable world that Isabella was born in 1451, not as an heir, not as a future queen, but as a political afterthought. Isabella's childhood offered no promise of a crown. She was not raised to rule, but to obey. Her half-brother, King Henry IV of Castile, sat on the throne, a ruler plagued by weakness, scandal, and doubt. The court whispered, the nobles plotted, and Castile drifted toward chaos. In this world, Isabella learned early that survival required restraint. She watched power closely, how it was gained, how it was lost, and how its legitimacy could vanish. When Henry attempted to control her future through a politically convenient marriage, Isabella did something dangerous. She refused. In secret, she chose her own husband, Ferdinand of Aragon. It was not a romantic gesture. It was a calculated one, because this marriage did not unite the people, it united two crowns. The marriage of Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon, 1469, was not the birth of Spain, but it was the spark. Together, they ruled separate kingdoms with separate laws and institutions, yet they presented themselves as a single force. Their motto was simple: one faith, one crown, one people. But unity in the medieval world did not mean tolerance. It meant control. Isabella was no passive consort. She ruled Castile in her own right, issuing laws, commanding loyalty, and reshaping the monarchy into something far more centralized than anything Iberia had known before. The nobility, once untouchable, was brought to heel. Royal authority expanded. Order replaced chaos. But peace, Isabella believed, could only exist if belief itself was unified. To Isabella, faith was not private. It was political. She believed with unshakable conviction that God had chosen her to restore Christian purity to the realm, and that belief justified everything. In 1478, with papal approval, the Spanish Inquisition was born. Its purpose was not to convert Muslims or Jews openly practicing their faith, but to hunt those suspected of false conversion. Conversos, crypto-Jews, hidden heretics. Fear became a tool of governance. Silence became safety. The Inquisition did not merely punish it, reshaped behavior, language, and identity itself. Spain was becoming unified, but it was also becoming narrower. One kingdom remained outside Christian rule, Granada, the last Muslim stronghold in Iberia. Granada stood as both a political obstacle and a symbolic one. For 10 years, Isabella and Ferdinand waged war against it, not as a border dispute, but as a holy mission. When Granada finally fell in January 1492, Isabella entered the city in triumph. The Reconquista was complete. After nearly 8 centuries, Muslim rule in Iberia had ended. Church bells rang. Chronicles praised her as God's chosen queen. But victory carried consequences. Promises of tolerance were broken. Muslims were pressured to convert or leave, and soon they too would face expulsion. Unity had been achieved, but at the cost of coexistence. 1492 is remembered as a turning point in world history. Granada fell, the Reconquista ended, and then another decision was made. That same year, Isabella approved the Edict of Expulsion. All Jews who refused conversion were ordered to leave Spain. Families who had lived on Iberian soil for generations were given months to abandon their homes, their livelihoods, their past. Spain lost scholars, physicians, translators, merchants, an entire intellectual backbone, and yet Isabella believed she was saving the soul of her kingdom. Faith demanded purity, and purity demanded sacrifice. But 1492 held one more decision, one that would echo far beyond Europe. A Genoese navigator named Christopher Columbus stood before the Queen, asking for ships. Columbus did not seek to discover a new world. He sought a new route. Others had dismissed him. Isabella listened. Perhaps she saw opportunity, perhaps destiny, perhaps divine providence. Whatever her reasoning, she agreed. 3 ships sailed west and returned with news that would redraw the world. Spain became an empire overnight. Gold, silver, and souls flowed across the Atlantic, and with them came conquest, conversion, and catastrophe. Isabella would never see the full consequences of that choice. But history would. The medieval world was ending. The modern age had begun, and at its center stood a queen who believed she was fulfilling God's will. Isabella of Castile died in 1504. She left behind a unified kingdom, a powerful monarchy, and the foundations of a global empire. She also left behind exile, persecution, and a legacy that resists simplicity. Was she a visionary ruler who forged order from chaos, or a zealot who mistook uniformity for truth? Perhaps she was both. Isabella did not merely rule Spain. She defined it. Her reign reminds us that nations are not born innocent. They are shaped by choices, by beliefs, and by the people deemed expendable in the pursuit of unity. And so, when we speak of Spain's birth, we must ask the question history often avoids. Not how it was forged, but who paid the price. Because the story of Isabella of Castile is not only medieval, it is timeless. It asks us whether unity must always come at the cost of difference, and whether faith, once married to power, can ever remain pure. History does not answer these questions for us. It only reminds us that every nation is born from choices and that some echoes never fade. If stories like this help you see the Middle Ages with new eyes, consider subscribing to Medieval Chronicles. Here, we don't just revisit the past. We listen to its echoes. From Medieval Chronicles.